Howdy, 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 my name is Anachi Sasuke, and welcome to a very unusual episode of Let's Read the SCP Foundation Wiki. Unusual thing number one, I'm using the webcam! I haven't used my webcam for these videos in like a while, at least a year, probably less. The other thing is the fact that I'm going to be uploading it on the weekend, which I've actually been trying to not do for a while now. And the third unusual thing is I'm not intending on stopping after 40 minutes. I'm going to do my best to get as close to 200 as possible, and we're currently on 140, so I'm not going to get very far. I'm also attempting to not do a whole lot of cursing, but just look at entry number 141. They're really trying to trip me up on that. So, let's go on over to, the Incomplete Chronicle. Which sounds like that one song, the Incomplete Symphony, or Uncompletable Symphony, whatever it was. The thing that, when Markiplier was playing Containment Breach, that I thought I thought it was a song that the person tried to finish writing and then died, but it sounds like it may actually be this thing. But this is Keter class, so I could be wrong. I used to not wear my glasses when I was doing recordings with the webcam because the headphones would squeeze my head, but that doesn't seem to be happening. So, SCP-140 must never be brought closer than 15 meters to any source of standard ink, human blood, or other fluid suitable for writing. P? Can you write with P? I don't know, I've never thought about it. Actually, I think there's a glare, so I probably do have to take these off. I think that's what it was. It wasn't pain, it was glares. But I'm gonna have to squint a bit until my eyes adjust to being blind. Any remaining copies of 140... Oh, my bad. Any contamination by blood or ink must be reported immediately! Any remaining copies of 140 created during the initial printing must be found and destroyed as soon as possible. Only 140 is to be preserved for purposes of study, early warning, and cataloging and recording possible SCPs derived from its subject matter. Oh wait, is this the book, I feel like I already know about this. I don't know why I already know about this, but I think this is the one where if they write in it, the SCPs happen. No wait, because that was one of the SCP entries number 1. So it might be that, but it might not be that. Anyway. 140 is contained at Site 76 in a sealed vault containing a single desk. At this time, no research is to be carried out upon the original 140. Researchers are to read from prepared copies not bearing the signature of its author, which lack its properties. In the event of a proved research, 140 may not be removed from the vault, and readers may not be in contact with it for longer than 9 hours. Specific? Access requires written approval from the head researcher for the explicit purposes of testing. An armed guard stationed outside the vault will meet any attempted theft with deadly force. Why would anyone try to steal it if it's deadly or something? Should any personnel begin displaying obsession with 140, alright, or signs of possible magnetic contamination, they are to be issued a Class A amnesiac, false memories implanted as necessary, and transferred to another project. Transferred personnel must be monitored for signs of relapse, so that they can be terminated. Anyway, SCP-140 is a modern hard copy book with an unremarkable black binding and an unknown number of white pages. The book jacket is missing, but the title, A Chronicle of the Devas, is clearly legible. The inside cover is signed by the author, whose name is indecipherable. The text is copyrighted 19-something. Careful examination reveals there are far more pages between the bindings than could be contained within them. Readers admit to feelings of paranoia, unease, and occasional nausea while reading 140, kinda like math homework, although this may be related to the subject material. Nonetheless, readers almost universally describe 140 as fascinating, and express continued interest despite its frequently unsettling content. Upsetting, same thing. 1 in 15 readers describe 140 as having a faint odor of dried blood. I wonder why that could be! 140 is a detailed account of an ancient civilization originating in what is now south-central Siberia, identified as the Davites? I almost said Davides, but I think it is Davites. Although, like all cultures, the Davites evolved and changed over time, they appear to have exhibited unusual continuity. Universal fixtures of the Davite culture in all periods included militarism, Conquest, ancestor worship, urban centers ruling over large slave populations, gruesome human sacrifice, and the practice of apparently efficacious thaumaturgic rituals. I feel like I know what that word is, but I'm going to Google it anyway. I've heard the word thaumaturgy, but I don't remember what it means. None of this helps. Okay. Thaumaturgy is the capability of a magician or a saint to work magic or miracles. Isaac Bonewitz defined thaumaturgy as the use of magic for non-religious something. That feels like one of those words that I know and shouldn't, but alright. A variety of relics and creatures produced by the Davite culture would be abnormal or dangerous enough, if the account is to be believed, to qualify for containment in their own right. If 140 comes into contact with any fluid suitable for writing, including human blood, the account of the Davite civilization's history expands. Human blood appears the most potent of possible writing substances, that's probably why the book smells like blood. But in any case, the amount of new material does not correspond proportionately to the fluids introduced. Although these new segments sometimes include new descriptions of rituals or cultural traits or illustrations of previously covered material, they more frequently include new, more recent accounts of information chronicling the continued history of the Davite civilization, or descriptions of new individuals and artifacts. Formerly decisive defeats become setbacks, new persons and events are inserted. Foundation archaeologists have discovered corresponding new artifacts and traces of the Davite civilization in applicable locations and strata, in some cases found in dig sites that had already been thoroughly explored. Okay, so if people get this book and they're bleeding, they'll write in it with their blood and the things they write happen. Yeah, I guess I can understand why that would be Keter. Although at times the Davites were a collection of city-states, they appear to have consistently returned to imperialism under a theocratic aristocracy, the Eva, practitioners of cannibalism and thaumaturgy, so magic cannibals from the past. Although initially Foundation researchers believed the Deva to have been a hereditary class recycling the names of noteworthy individuals, evidence and the events of blank blank to 20 blank now suggest that the Deva possessed preternatural longevity as a result of redacted. Okay. Cannibalism? Several researchers, notably Professor Somebody, have concluded that the Deva were so divergent from modern humans as to be a separate subspecies, a conclusion supported by graphic representations within 140 and data expunged. Maybe they found some of the magic cannibals. 140 is remarkably detailed by the standards of a primary source, seeming closer to a biography than a historic text. It includes lurid descriptions of sacrificial rites, battlefield descriptions, daily life, and the life stories of various noteworthy individuals, including quotes and dates of birth. Over something distinct individuals have been identified, including the individual presently termed SCP-140-A, of which only blank are accounted for by recorded deaths. Foundation archaeologists have discovered several sites containing ruins consistent with the supposed Davite culture in various locations across Siberia, northern Iran, and Mongolia. Artifacts and traces of intercultural conflict and contact have been discovered as far west as the Carpathian, mountains, and as far east as northern Pakistan and China. These include SCP Redacted. Okay, I guess we'll never know. Addendum 140-A. 140 was originally found in the office of deceased historian someone. The previous owner was discovered in his office at somewhere university, having expired from self-inflicted lacerations on both wrists. There were no traces of Blank's blood in the office. Blank's colleagues claimed during the interviews they discovered a note in faded ink in Blank's handwriting next to 140. All witnesses were administered Class A amnesiacs and false memories implanted. Blank's note read, "I have to know. I'm sorry." Okay, so I guess he opened the book and the book was like, "Hey, you want to improve our history?" And he was like, "Okay," and then he died. All texts within 15 meters, except several books related to the history of the region, were blank. The remaining books now include accounts of supposed interaction between the Davite civilization and the subject cultures or applicable discussions of Davite history and culture. These texts were confiscated. All printed forms and media were blank. All pens, printers, and ink cartridges were empty. That's strange, but this is the website for many strange things happening. Well, this website and Netflix, but, you know, stranger things. Although SCP-140 was published during the 20th century, the tone of the book suggested as a recounting of events, individuals, and practices experienced firsthand by 140's unknown author. Foundation investigators have tracked 140's publication to the blank printing house, and a batch of blank copies self-published by a wealthy individual hereby termed 140A. 140A's signature on the contract matches the strange signature inside 140. More than 40-something of the copies produced in this batch were apparently leached of all ink by the blank remaining copies. To date, Foundation agents have recovered and destroyed blank of the remainder, but between blank and blank remain at large. 2 expansion events have been reported during periods when 140 had never been exposed to fluids or any sort or removed from its vault. An investigation and manhunt for the author of 140 is ongoing. In the event of contact, agents are advised data redacted. 140C Addendum. Through study of 140 and other contained objects relating to the Davite civilization, Foundation researchers have concluded that, transposed to the modern era, the resurgence of a hostile Davite civilization in history more recent than something common era would constitute a grave and even possibly retroactive threat to the Foundation and modern civilization as we know it. Even best-case projections of Davite resurgence in the modern day suggest a CK-class restructuring of modern society and a worldwide conflict with projected death toll of at least redacted and an end to the Foundation's secrecy. Okay, so I'm not sure I understand how a CK-class restructuring of modern society could come from magic cannibals. But okay. Addendum 140D. Blank's journal, found in his on his home PC and data expunged, indicates that upon his initial reading of 140, it ended with the almost utter destruction of Davite civilization and the genocide of all known Davite in 200-something before Common Era by the forces of Chinese General Qin Kai. I have no idea if I said that right, and I never will. As a result of subsequent containment breaches, including those detailed in the journal, copious quantities of new material have been added, describing survivors regrouping and migrating to another region of central Siberia, rebuilding their empire steadily and continuing to advance culturally and technologically. At present, the empire is described as having finally been crushed by Genghis Khan during the early period of his conquest, although the fates of many important persons in several cities remain ambiguous. Foundation archaeologists will be dispatched to expunged, they didn't even say data expunged, just expunged, for investigation and research. Addendum 140E, and then it's the end of the entry. After the incident on blank 2000-something at data expunged dig site resulting in over blank casualties, all Foundation archaeologists excavating sites of suspected Davite artifacts or ruins are to be accompanied by a fully armed security team. That sounds like magic cannibal zombies happened. SCP-141 has been neutralized. 142 remains at large. All other anomalous contacts and artifacts were destroyed when the dig site was struck by a cruise missile. Agent Blank received a commendation and was treated for post-traumatic stress disorder. Dr. Blank received a posthumous commendation for courage. An investigation into the possible involvement of 140A or their agents in the events of blank 2000-something is ongoing. I would Google what a cruise missile looks like, but I also don't want that in my search history. So, next up is going to be the Codex Damnatio. Damnation? It might be Codex Damnation. But it's safe, so maybe it's not the Codex Damnation. When not in use, SCP-141 is to be stored inside a locked safe in Site-76. Trombones. Access to this safe requires security level clearance 3 or higher and written approval to use 141. When 141 is in use, either for implementation in accordance with Foundation goals, or for research purposes, it is to be kept within the possession of the assigned researcher at all times. Failure to account for 141 will result in a severe reprimand, as usual, probably termination. While 141's danger to the Foundation appears limited, it could still be a tempting target for certain subversive groups or opportunistic users. For this reason, 141 is to be checked out for no more than 1 week at a time. Now let's find out what it is. SCP-141 is a small leather-bound codex dating back to Roman times, easily carried in one hand. Despite its great age, it never acquires any additional signs of wear and tear beyond a somewhat aged-looking cover. Its thin papyrus pages are always crisp, and so far proven difficult to tear from the Codex's binding. Why would you even try to do that? Because you're crazy! All attempts at radiocarbon dating have failed. The judgment of 141 as being Roman in origin was initially based upon its appearance, but later confirmed through extensive research using 141 corroborated by historical records. The title is apparently Codex Damnatio, based upon the text on its spine. 141's pages are written in a Roman Republic-era Latin. It is a detailed description of notes and summations for a wide range of legal trials. This first half contains a series of historic trials from throughout history. The earliest trial appears to be from the proscriptions of the late Roman Republic, while the most recent case is the data redacted, taking place in 2000-something. Each case summary is extensive, with precise witness quotations, exact physical descriptions of evidence, and their importance to the case, and so on. Alright, so it's a book that can be held in one hand, but it starts at the late Roman Republic, and the most recent thing is in the year 2000-something. Okay. The Codex actually contains far more legal cases than its 150 pages could possibly allow. Alright, there you go. A reader must make a detailed reference to a range of specific case to discover if it is listed inside. If it is, the pages will transform into those relating to the specified case. This requires specific mentions of historical context surrounding the cases. What, so do you talk to it? Research with 141 conducted by Professor Somebody revealed that 141 has apparently been employed in, among other important periods, a wide variety of Roman proscriptions, heretical trials of the Catholic Church, including the conviction of data expunged. I have no idea who they could be. The Spanish Inquisition, because nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition, the witch hunts of the 17th century, and the Red Scare of the mid-20th century. Is the Red Scare communism? Okay, I need to Google that one. The first Red Scare. The Red Scare is a promotion of widespread fear by a society or state about a potential rise of someone. The events of the late 1940s, the trial of Ethel and Julius Rosenberg, the Iron Curtain... Okay, yeah, communism. The latter half of the book is blank, and can be written in with any pen with black ink. A user of SCP-141 must provide detailed information about a criminal proceeding, including victim, evidence, witness statements, and suspects, and they must do so in Republic-era Latin. Okay, so I guess they don't talk at it, they just write what they need in the blank part of the book, provided they know Republic-era Latin. Later readings of the book will reveal these new cases in the first half of the book, written in the same handwriting as the rest, a very precise, careful hand. When this information is provided to 141, the particulars of the case described in 141 appear to become true in regards to memory and evidence surrounding the case. Witnesses' memories and testimony will correspond to the information written in 141. Falsified evidence springs into existence in accordance with its description, usually appearing in the court record or the crime scene where it can easily be discovered. This has included murder weapons, suspicious traces of the subject such as fluids or fingerprints, stolen items, or incriminating documents. 141 appears able to cause criminal activities that would not have taken place, although this requires even more precise wording and description of the particulars. This sounds like it's the Death Note in the second half of it. Let's see now. The guilty party specified by 141 may have a false memory implanted that corresponds with 141's account of events, although this result requires a clever description of the desired scenario. These memories do not overwrite the original ones, but they do seem quite nearly as real. This sounds less safe than they think it is. Maybe the addendums will explain that. Care must be taken by all the users to ensure as many loopholes are closed as possible. 141's falsifications will stand up to all but the most critical of examinations, but it will only produce precisely the memories and evidence written inside of it. While it appears to prejudice the court against the guilty party, this is not foolproof. Nonetheless, successfully employed, 141 is an almost surefire conviction. Even in the event of exoneration, guilty subjects will often still be ostracized and viewed as guilty by influenced witnesses and law enforcement personnel, who may in some cases data redacted. Kill them? 141A. The tests are ongoing to determine if 141 is capable of exonerating an innocent man wrongly convicted, or if changing the results during the trial has any measurable effect. Approval to employ 141 in a test case is pending. 141B. Following data redacted, all tests involving Foundation disciplinary hearings or implicating members of the Foundation other than D-Class personnel without signed waivers from the guilty subject are hereby forbidden by 05 somebody. Violation of this new security protocol shall be dealt with harshly. With termination. Because it's never not termination. It's either memory wipe and then later termination, or termination and then oops! Okay, so next up is the one-armed bandit. And the one-armed bandit is safe! Okay, 142 is to be... No, we're not going to use his numbers. The one-armed bandit is to be kept locked in an accessible room with the following: a table with a surface area no smaller than 75 by 75 centimeters, one stool of adjustable height, one wall clock, electric, boogie woogie woogie, to be kept visible and running at all times when the one-armed man is in use. Access to the one-armed man is permitted only with express written consent of Dr. Somebody or other level 4 personnel. Staff assigned to the one-armed man must... that's great. Staff assigned to the one-armed man must not have any personal or family history of compulsive gambling nor gambling addiction. Staff assigned to the one-armed man are not to make any physical contact with the device under any circumstances. Okay, it's not just some one-armed dude, it's a slot machine. Okay, I'll use the numbers now. 142 closely resembles a 1940s Black Beauty slot machine. I wonder what that is. Can't hurt to check. I mean, if I'm not stopping at 40 minutes, I've got time to Google nonsense. And how do you look? This is not a Black Beauty. I've been had. Okay, well that's enough of that. So, as produced... Oh, okay, I guess it was the right thing. It said Mill. As produced by the Mill Corporation during that era. The only observed irregularity in the external construction of 142 is found in the coin slot of the device, which has been modified to accept any item that will fit in a cylindrical space 5 centimeters in length and 2.4 centimeters in diameter. That sounds dangerous. When any object of appropriate size, hereafter referred to as the bet, is dropped into the input chute of 141, the device may be operated as is customary for a slot machine of this model. Should the tumblers come to rest in a losing configuration, the bet is lost and cannot be recovered. However, in the event that the tumblers come to rest in a winning configuration, between 2 and 200 indistinguishably identical copies of the bet are dispensed from the output chute of the machine. In the event that the bet consists of multiple objects, the output of the device, if any, consists of a random assortment of duplicates of the wagered items. Test data reveals that the median payout from winning configurations to be 10 items regardless of the number of items inserted. Human subjects allowed to interact with 142 are affected by the object in 3 unique stages. Stage 1 begins immediately upon direct or indirect physical contact with the lever of the device. Subjects demonstrate mild giddiness and demonstrate a greatly diminished sense of the passage of time. So, gambling. If the subject has not exhausted the supply of betting material after 28 to 34 minutes of play, he or she will gradually enter the next stage. Subjects at stage 2 appear compelled to bet larger and larger quantities of provided betting items, 5 to 20% of the remaining material, until supplies are exhausted. Subjects also express the delusion that they are winning more frequently as a result of their altered betting strategy. So, gambling. In spite of this belief, the frequency of payout seems to be somewhat reduced at this stage. Stage 3 begins once all of the subject's betting material is lost, typically in 10 to 12 minutes following the onset of Stage 2, if no additional betting material is provided to the subject by a third party. Subjects at this stage will express a strong aversion to 142 and will not continue to operate the device unless compelled with physical force. So, gamble! Subjects also express a moderate aversion to any action which would cause an object to pass through a hole, and express a strong irrational fear that they will waste or lose something should they engage in the offending activity, so they're locked out of their houses forever. Specific examples vary by subject, but include passing through doorways, placing objects into cabinets, bags, or any other storage medium, use of sinks, showers, or other plumbing fixtures with drains, removing and or putting on clothing, sexual intercourse, and most commonly, eating. Everything except opening a locked door. Okay then. Roughly 62% of subjects that reach stage 3 will expire due to starvation or malnutrition unless actively compelled to eat or provided nutrients through other means. And this is safe? Right, it's safe to get it. That doesn't mean it's safe to use it. Okay. Any subject restrained or otherwise removed from interaction with 142 during stage 1 will recover in full within 1 hour. However, stage 2 subjects separated from the device will enter stage 3, and the effects of stage 3 have proven permanent in all cases. Subjects in stage 3 should be turned... Sorry about the sound of the microphone hitting my shirt, but... Subjects in stage 3 should be terminated at the conclusion of each experiment. I don't know if that's supposed to be like a mercy termination, because hey, now that you're in stage 3, you're afraid to eat and will slowly die. Or we could just shoot you. Or whatever method of termination they use. They might use the actual Terminator. They might have it. There's 4,000 of these things. How would I know? Actually, if entry 105 was anything, they do have a Terminator. It's just the angel guarding the Tree of Life, which is inside of a volcano in a box. 142 was recovered on blank 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 from an abandoned antique dealership in somewhere, Ohio, following a tip from somebody. Records from that area indicate that the shop owner died of starvation roughly 5 years prior to the retrieval of the device. Addendum 142.1. On blankety blank blank, in the course of an approved experiment, 142 was temporarily disassembled and each piece catalogued. The construction of 142 proved unsurprising for a slot machine of this make and model, with 2 exceptions. Component 1420046, the lever of the device, was found to contain several unexpected alloys, including data expunged. Contact with the lever has no effect when it is not connected to the rest of the apparatus. Additionally, as mentioned previously, the coin slot of the device is extensively modified to accept objects larger than coins. The most notable element of the custom chute is component 1420524, a small chamber composed of thin pewter plates. 1420524 appears to serve as both the holding mechanism for betting material and the dispenser for payouts. The means of interaction between this component and the rest of 142 is unclear. However, due to the highly fragile construction of component 1420524, and its presumed relationship to the device's duplication properties, further examination is prohibited without O5 consent. Addendum 1422. With the permission of O5 somebody, personnel may now submit appropriate materials to be used with 142 for potential multiplication. Requests should be submitted in writing to Dr. Somebody. Don't gamble, y'all. Well, if you have a gambling addiction, I'm pretty sure there's people you can talk to about it. Just watch any commercial about the lottery and how unlikely you are to win it, and they'll tell you. But I'm not the lottery commission, so I don't know. Next up is the Bladewood Grove. I get why they call it the one-armed bandit now, because it has... The one arm is the slot lever, and it steals lives. Now, the Bladewood Grove. Doesn't sound safe, especially since it's a grove. Yeah, it's Euclid. They don't understand. Hey, a testing log. Let's open that in the new tab. 143 is to be contained in the valley adjacent to Bioresearch Area 12, an area over 2 kilometers squared. Areas surrounding 143 for up to 20 kilometers and all lines of sight from the surrounding hilltops are to be denied public access. 143 is to be watered twice every day on regular basis via a large sprinkler system, unless already watered by local precipitation. What happens if you water it again? Maybe we'll find out. Personnel are not allowed to enter the enclosure without level 4 administrative clearance, or if they're disposable, I imagine. And are advised not to touch any of 143, nor stand beneath them, unless wearing proper protective gear. It is important that no one be within the containment area when 143 begins to shed. However, after the shedding has concluded, the collection of the fallen petals for testing purposes has been authorized by the project director. See that testing log. I guess we'll see that testing log. I guess we'll get back to that testing log. 143 is a plantation of 300 specimens of a unique type of tree. The trees are similar in appearance to cherry blossom trees. They bear no fruit, and the only known way of reproduction is by careful own root propagation using cut saplings from an older sample. There's an actual term for that, but I am forgetting it because I don't do trees, y'all. I just don't. The petals are a light pinkish color, slightly translucent, and with a texture of smooth glass. Smooth glass, WJJZ. No, WSCP. There we go. Care must be taken when handling the petals, as their edges are razor sharp and can easily slice through flesh if mishandled. The wood and bark are a light grayish color with a texture of expected of wood, although the grain is very smooth to the touch, so it's really, really smooth trees with smooth glass, WSCP. However, the petals and wood of these trees are much harder than most natural or man-made substances, reaching up to 5,000 HB on the Brinell scale, and withstanding temperatures up to 1800 degrees Celsius, which is probably terrifying in Fahrenheit. But I'm not going to Google the Fahrenheit because nobody except for my country cares about Fahrenheit. Fahrenheit might as well not even be real to anybody else. The weight to strength ratio surpasses even that of titanium, being some 15% lighter than aluminum. Despite this hardness, the wooden petals are quite supple and are as pliable as most woods are. Except, you know, razor sharp and deadly to flesh. Both are notoriously difficult to work due to their properties, but under high temperatures, upwards of... Upwards of 1500 degrees Celsius, separate pieces are capable of being fused together. They make excellent armor, shielding, and weapons. Due to the slow growth of the plants, the material is slow to harvest, although the petals are shed regularly enough, falling from the trees twice every year. I imagine that's how cherry blossoms work for real. I've never thought about it. The trees were grown on site from saplings obtained from parent plants located in the Nara Prefecture in Japan in 1905. Wow, we actually got a place and a date for real. The parent trees were owned by a family of traditionalist swordsmiths, claiming to be descended from a legendary sword maker named Amakuni. I wonder if that's a real person. Amakuni, are you real? Yeah. Alright, cool. Amakuni Yasusuna. Yeah. They referred to the original trees as Jinki do Kodachi, or the Bladewood Grove. It is from them that the Foundation gained the techniques to cut and work the wood and petals into serviceable items. The original trees are still in Japan, owned by the government, and still tended to by the same family. However, the government has denied all existence of the trees, and any products made from them are kept within the country. Document 143A. We lost 3 staff to 143 today. They were collecting petals dropped from the trees the previous day when a sudden gust picked up, shaking a good deal of the petals from the trees and blowing them around. Stayed that windy for the whole day. I said a cleanup crew, but it's still pretty windy and the odd petal is still falling. We'll have to pick up the remains when the wind dies down in a couple of days. Okay, so they basically got blended. But it sounds like it's called the Bladewood Grove because the people made swords with the trees, I imagine. So, first thing in the testing, petals were taken from 143 were introduced to 457 to test their heat resistance against heat sources of anomalous origins. The use of gasoline to act as an accelerant was authorized during this test. Results: 457 maintained an average temperature of 870 degrees Celsius without the use of an accelerant. At this temperature, 143 didn't care. Gasoline was provided at a rate of 2 liters per minute to increase its core temperature. At 1500 degrees Celsius, the petals became red hot and were determined to be pliable. Gasoline continued to be provided to 457 until its core temperature reached 1800 degrees Celsius, at which time 143 began to display signs of igniting. At 1850, 143 ignited and fused together. The sprinkler system connected to 457's containment chamber was then activated. Following the results yielded from testing, requests to use 143 have been approved for use in producing armor, shielding, and weapons for Foundation personnel. Further testing with 143 and non-anomalous heat sources yielded the same results as testing with 457, thus suggesting that the melting point of 143 is 1800 degrees Celsius. Further testing with 143 and other heat sources of anomalous origins is currently pending approval. Due to the results gathered during testing, the sprinkler system inside 457's containment chamber has since been reinforced using 143. Okay, SCP-890. Provided with a set of handcrafted scalpels produced with the petals taken from 143. 890 was then instructed to operate on a HP brand copy machine that had short-circuited the week prior. An identical machine with a similar electrical problem was also given to 890 along with a set of standard scalpels. 890 was instructed to perform 2 separate operations using the different set of tools and provide feedback on the differences of the procedures. Any further testing completed with 890 is to be documented extensively, and the objects involved in the testing procedure are to be monitored until such time that they are deemed fully functional. Access statement made by 890? 890 has been given permission to utilize the scalpels produced using 143 in all future procedures that may occur. Production of other medical tools crafted using 143 for use within the Foundation is currently pending approval after clinical testing is conducted. What? Oh, I guess I just open it. Yeah, I'm not going to read all that. I wonder if I should see what 890 is, just for, just curiosity's sake. Oh, it's actually just a dude who was a doctor. But his face is all zoomed in and ominous looking, and, since it's going to be a while before I know what any of these SCPs actually are, I'm just going to move on. Tibetan Rope to Heaven. Why do they have the Tibetan Rope to Heaven? I mean, I guess I understand why it would be considered safe, because, I mean, I only know the tale of the Tibetan Rope to Heaven because of freaking YouTube videos about the Legend of Zelda, with Candata and all that, and Buddha sending the rope down, and the guy trying to leave from hell, but then the other zombies came, and he's like, no, it's my rope! And then the rope got cut, and they all went back to hell, and did whatever you do when you fall back to hell when Buddha tries to help you and it doesn't work out. So, SCP-144 requires the presence of only one Foundation observer to monitor and issue updates on the condition of 144. The Tibetan Buddhist monks who maintain the site live in solitude and secrecy. A heavy mist condenses around the small mountain that hosts 144, which itself resides in a small valley between 2 greater mountains, Mount Something and Something. This mist is present most of the year, and the thin rope itself is only fairly visible to the human eye within a distance of 3 kilometers. Air travel within a 70-kilometer radius has been restricted with the cooperation of the Chinese government. Located in a monastery atop the small Tibetan mountain, SCP-144 is a thin, taut hempen rope, only 1.2 centimeters thick, attached to a ring of jade bound to the floor of an atrium in the temple, known as Base Camp among researchers. The other end of 144 extends straight upward many kilometers into the sky to a yet-to-be-explored satellite in geostationary orbit above the Earth at an altitude of more than 39 kilometers, over 22 miles away, known as the Summit among researchers. Several times a year, a monk of the temple ascends up the rope several hundred meters in a ritual of spiritual enlightenment. The monks report that to this day, only one person by the name of Data Expunge has ever been killed during the ascension. Throughout the centuries, several climbers have disappeared, yet the monks believe that one day they will return, bringing greater understanding and enlightenment with them. Carbon dating of the rope fibers put SCP-144 at just over 1400 years old. Foundation anthropologists believe that the rope and the tradition of climbing it began within the rituals of an ancient dead religion before Emperor Songsan Gampo brought Buddhism to Tibet. At that time, it is believed that the rope was several kilometers longer. The attendant monks say that the jade ring was added in the early 9th century. I was trying to push up glasses and there weren't any. By the Raupakan to keep the seasonal winds from picking up the rope and swinging it throughout the countryside. Several times a year, the head monks untie the rope from the loop of jade and reposition the knot. Research has shown that in recent years, the rope has moved skyward at a rate of about 180 centimeters per year, and is slightly accelerating at a rate of 1/100th of a centimeter per year squared. With only a few hundred meters of rope left, the monks are unsure of what to do when it reaches the end. Some hope to add length by attaching separate sections of rope to the original, while others believe that new rope won't have the strength of the old. Research has been unable to explain how plant fiber rope has been able to survive 1400 years and maintain such tensile strength at such extreme temperatures and conditions of the upper atmosphere and space that people are able to climb it, let alone support its own enormous weight against itself, all 39 kilometers worth of rope. If the summit is accelerated away from Earth, its pull on 144 is also unexplained. The summit has only been properly imaged by ground-based telescopes, which show the rope of 144 going up and over the edge of a large asteroid-like rock, several hundred meters in width. Satellites have been unable to picture the opposite, dark side of the summit. It has been reasoned that orbiting satellites are designed to image ground-based locations or distant space objects at much greater distances than other neighboring orbital satellites. Researchers disagree about why images of the dark side of the summit return blurry and unfocused, rendering the dark side unknown. Addendum 144-4. Several Class D personnel were offered immediate release if they were able to climb the summit, if possible, and return. While multiple warnings were issued by the monks attending the rope, no resistance was offered. Of the 6 personnel who accepted, 4 returned to base camp complaining of difficulty breathing and lack of air. 1 slammed into base camp at terminal velocity, presumably after losing his grip from fatigue, and the last has not yet returned. Interesting. Next up is man-absorbing phone? Okay then. Well, it's Euclid, which is, I guess, to be understood, because it's a man-absorbing phone. So, 145 is to remain inside its room at all times in a 0.5 by 0.5 by 0.5 meter plexiglass container unless being studied. Room is to be thoroughly soundproofed and securely locked when studies of 145 are not in progress. Under no circumstances shall any personnel come into physical contact with 145, as it is man-absorbing, without being unaccompanied and constantly observed by 1 or more other personnel, unless conducting testing with proper authorization. I remember there weren't glasses this time. Any personnel showing signs of intense psychological trauma must be immediately escorted out of the containment area. Depending on the level of trauma of affected personnel, they may be required to submit to consultation with an approved psychiatrist for no less than 2 weeks. And then I guess terminated. Description: 145 appears to be a standard 2002 model cordless telephone handset of Alcatel brand on its standard issue charging base. The charging base appears defaced. All jack inputs are sealed with resin glue and the power input to the device has been gouged out with an unknown sharp tool. Maybe it came from the Bladewood Grove. Serial number and production date are unavailable as all labels and stickers have been ripped off or defaced. The phone rings constantly whether it's on the base or not, regardless of the lack of power source. Tests have shown the battery is removable and disassembly of the base has not shown any effect on the hand unit. The hand unit itself has had all of the seams sealed, preventing conventional disassembly. When answered, a female voice speaks on the phone in a voice that shows high levels of stress. This voice varies from conversation to conversation, but in all cases the voice expresses extreme panic and proceeds to plead with the listener for assistance as she describes instances of torture conducted on unknown victims. In the background, the listener will hear sounds of violence and expressions of pain and anguish. Audio analysis has so far indicated at least blank individual voices over disparate calls. The methods of torture implied thus far, judging from the phrases and reactions of those speaking at the time of contact, have included branding, electrocution, laceration, sexual assault, data expunged, and dismemberment. Can't help but wonder what that data expunged is if there's already laceration, electrocution, branding, and dismemberment. The callers appear to be non-automated and entirely sentient. Attempts to trace the call or track down the location of the tortured callers have proven unsuccessful thus far. Attempts to block the signal to the phone with the use of a Faraday cage have also been unsuccessful. Dang. Research is conducted in teams of at least 3, 1 Class D staff, 1 Class 2, 145 audio technician, and 1 Class 3 security staff, with only Class D staff permitted to have direct auditory contact with 145's transmissions. Testing has shown that in 100% of cases, a subject answering 145 without live supervision will vanish without any indications of transportation methods. Video recording devices do not show the method of transport. The subject will be presented in one frame and absent in the next. In case of disappearance, the phone will simply fall to the floor. That sounds like they're getting sucked out of the Matrix. Subsequent communication with the object has revealed the vanished subjects joined the group of torture victims. Sounds about right. Testing log. Procedure. All tests will be conducted with D-Class personnel. Any issued equipment for the test must be recorded in that log. From now on, I'm probably just going to call D-Class personnel the disposable dudes. So, the disposable dudes will then be ordered to pick up the phone. After disappearance of initial test subject, the above standard research team will answer the phone and record any observations. Test 145A. Disposable Dude 3749 issued 1 GPS location device, testing to attempt to ascertain the location described at the other end of the line. Result: GPS rendered non-functional after disappearance of disposable dude. On following interaction with 145, audio technician identifies voice of disposable dude 3749 has joined the other victims. Disposable dude 4751 issued a GPS and a standard issue military combat knife. I really said military issue. Second attempt to ascertain the location described at the other end of the line, self-defense option provided to subject. GPS rendered non-functional after the disappearance of disposable dude. On following interaction with 145, female voice indicates continued stress and states, "Oh god, he's cutting him! He's cutting off!" Data expunged. Audio technician then identifies disposable dude 4751 has joined other victims. Disposable dude 5319 issued one 9mm semi-automatic pistol, one Kevlar vest, subject compelled to pick up phone. Attempt to determine interactivity of location, determine if any self-defense method is possible. On following interaction with 145, gunshots are heard, then data expunged. Female voice resumes, states data expunged, and additional gunshots are heard. Audio technician identifies disposable dude 5319's exclamations of pain after each gunshot. Disposable dude 6842 issued 1 kilogram of C4 explosives concealed in a supply kit. Explosive attached to a remote trigger with a 30-second delay, triggered before interaction with 145. Attempt to determine if any possible level of interaction or destruction of location. Result: data expunged resulted in blank Foundation personnel missing, including Dr. Blank and all researchers associated with data expunged breaches of SCP security at Site Blank. Further testing of this nature is suspended at this time. I don't know who thought this might be a good idea. I know sometimes we let sympathy get the better of us, but this attempt to bring relief to 145's victims just cost the Foundation a lot of money and resources, Dr. Blank. I'm not sure I understand what actually happened, but it sounds like when they brought the C4 into the phone, someplace else blew up. Okay, so, that's weird. Sorry that I keep not looking at the camera while I say these things. Again, I haven't used my webcam on purpose in over a year, so I'm not really used to it anymore. So, next up is the bronze head of shame. Shame! What's that? That looks like it would say shame. Photos of 146 have been deemed safe, but the object is Euclid. Containment procedures have been revised after it was noted that the effects of 146 were sharply and dangerously increased under previous containment, a standard 1/2 meter cubed secure storage bin. The bin should remain free, however, should a researcher wish to test... to test 146 at high intensity. Level 3 clearance is required for any personnel wishing to enclose or cover 146 for a period exceeding 2 days. During normal storage, 146 is to be kept on a marble pedestal in its storage room, located data expunged. 146 standard storage room measures no less than 20 square meters with stuccoed walls and a ceiling painted to resemble a clear daytime sky. The room is to be kept well lit, full daylight equivalent at all times, furnished with an assortment of potted plants which must be tended to daily, and decorated in the style of the late Republican period of Rome, circa 120 to 80 BCE. Experimentation with different interior styles have shown that 146 seems to prefer this arrangement and to have aesthetic preferences consistent with the aristocracy of Rome from that era. While this containment is standard, researchers with clearance level 2 or higher may experiment with different containment settings in order to modify the effects of 146. While 146 is non-motile... There's that word again. Why don't they just say it doesn't move? Why do they have to use the word motile? Why is motile even a word? It's one letter removed from mobile, which means the same thing! Anyway, and therefore requires little security itself. Personnel entering its containment area or handling it in any way must not make eye contact with 146. Does it even have eyes to make contact with? Yeah, it has weird glowy eyes. It looks like something you'd use as a weapon in God of War. Any attempts to cover 146 in order to prevent eye contact is prohibited, as this has been shown to increase 146 effect at an unpredictable rate. In general, 1 day of covering or refinement will cause 146 to skip over the beginning phase of its effect and begin with the most traumatic memories. After 3 days, 146 has been shown to produce its effect without having to make direct eye contact first. After 7 days, the effect is both far more intense and no longer confined to subjects within its field of vision. Researchers in an adjacent room were affected and one was permanently data expunged. Comatose? That doesn't sound like something that needs to be redacted. Permission to experiment beyond 7 days is denied by order of O5 somebody. Blinders and decorative screens are available to personnel who must enter 146 containment area for maintenance. SCP-146 is a hollow bronze head, apparently a fragment of a complete statue or bust, depicting a crowned young woman or perhaps an effeminate young man. The head exhibits severe, verdigris over much of its surface. The metal's turning green. The crown of 146 is inlaid with silver decorations, and its eyes, the apparent source of the effects, are beaten silver, shined to be mildly reflective. To date, 146 has not exhibited any signs of movement, but its reaction to certain decor in its containment area indicates that it may possess a degree of sentience, if not outright sapience. If it is able to communicate, it has not yet done so. 146 exhibits the ability to access and bring to mind certain memories in those who initiate eye contact. These memories are usually tied to a sense of guilt or shame in the subject. After initial eye contact is made, the subject need only remain somewhere in 146's field of vision for the memories and associated feelings to become more intense, although continual eye contact speeds the process. Upon initial eye contact with 146, recent memories will begin to surface in the subject. For example, subjects who have ignored a friend in the hall or exceeded the speed limit will be reminded of these events and begin to feel mildly guilty, whether or not they would normally care about the event. With continued exposure to the gaze of 146, the subject will begin to recall older and more vivid memories, with a corresponding increase in feelings of shame in the subject. Generally, after 30 minutes of exposure, the memories will move from being vivid recollections to intense hallucinations, with the subject unable to distinguish the past from the present or the imagined from the real. Subjects have been observed to regress in personality as well, particularly in cases where memories of childhood trauma have been brought up. Any tough subject exposed for over 30 minutes should be restrained both for their own safety and the safety of others. All subjects to date who have been exposed to 146 for 60 minutes have completely retreated into their hallucinations. So far, no subject has been restored to consciousness from this near catatonic state. See, again, why do they need to redact that if they're just going to say it later on that it's near catatonic? Such subjects must be fed intravenously and are unresponsive to external stimuli, save for occasional murmurings consistent with their regression. It has also been noted that when subjects recall a shameful event, they will often feel compelled to make amends for their actions. This is not generally a problem in the case of minor offenses and has in some cases led to a greater unity among the staff. However, problems arise when the subject cannot make amends, either because the offended party cannot be contacted, or because the transgression is somehow irredeemable. Sometimes the subject will put forth renewed positive efforts in order to balance out their guilt. However, in most such cases, subjects fall into a deep depression and or turn to some form of self-punishment, including self-mutilation and suicide. Please see the attached experiment logs for detailed cases. I don't think I need to do that. 146 was acquired from a Mr. Blank Blank of Birmingham, UK. Mr. Blank had acquired 146 during the estate sale of a renowned philanthropist, the late Blank Blank, Lord of Someplace. It was purchased in a lot with a number of other artifacts for blank amount of pounds. When Mr. Blank began to experience 146 effects, he began seeing a psychiatrist, undercover agent at UA3356G. Mr. Blank was put into an institution and 146 was taken into Foundation custody. The agent's notes on Mr. Blank's mental state are available for study by researchers of level 2 or higher, as filed of document 146A. Okay, so here's the things about tests. You don't really need to read these. Note, after several similar instances, it was determined that 146's ability was affected by its containment. Anyone wishing to do further research must take this into account, as even brief accidental exposure could prove harmful. Okay. Next up is the anachronistic television. So, the television that's out of time. Hey, it's I Love Lucy. A photograph of 147 in its optimal state. A black and white camera had to be used to take this photo, as the presence of modern camera triggers the hostile state. I'll take a drink of water before I start this one. because I think it's going to be a doozy. 147 is to be kept in the simulacrum of the 1950s era living room. Its current container contains a throw rug, 2 armchairs, a phonograph, a rotary telephone, and other suitable decorations. 147 will reject any items dating from later than March 1965. See Addendum 040. It requires no external power source or connection. Description: discovered in 1983 in a civilian home in Detroit, Michigan. 147 appears to be a 1957 General Electric brand black and white television model 17T026. 147 has been observed to exhibit 2 different behaviors. Optimal behavior of the TV. When it is in an acceptable room, it will display broadcasts of 1950s era comedies such as The Burns and Allen Show, Father Knows Best, and I Love Lucy. In every case, each broadcast has been completely unique. Archives of the programs, none of which are still being produced, have failed to find any record of the episodes that 147 plays. No commercials are shown, and there is no indication as to which station will be broadcasting these shows. All broadcasts are in black and white. Subjects exposed to 147 in its optimal state reported a pleasant feeling of relaxation. In this state, the item's volume and channels can be adjusted, though the off switch appears to have no effect. I caught a glimpse out of order of what the hostile one does, and I'm mildly afraid now. When modern-day items are present in 147's environment, the item will only display extremely violent and gruesome color footage. Beheadings, rapes, executions, and torture have all been observed, but as of yet, no footage has been broadcast that indicates when or where the scenes depicted took place. The footage is invariably of high visual and audio quality. Subjects exposed to 147 in its hostile state almost invariably vomit due to the graphic nature of the broadcast after 10 to 15 seconds. One subject suffered a nervous breakdown after 2 minutes of exposure. Why did they watch it for 2 minutes? Every subject has displayed an extreme reluctance to recall the contents of the broadcast, I imagine, and 2 out of the 15 subjects tasked with viewing 147's hostile broadcast have since committed suicide. Dang. None of the item's controls respond during hostile broadcasts. Had they considered taking a sledgehammer to the front of it? Because external power source or not, I'm pretty sure taking a sledgehammer to a demon television will do something. Attempts to examine the internals of 147 have been unsuccessful, as the items shall resist any and all attempts to crack it open. Well, okay, I stand corrected. Placing the item in a Faraday cage in order to negate any possible transmissions it could be receiving had no effect. The effects of long-term exposure to 147 have not been documented. Have they considered dropping it into the ocean? If it can't be cracked and the pressure of the ocean wouldn't crack it, then maybe they could use the TV to see what's at the bottom of the ocean. Gotta look on the bright side. Any and all recreational activities involving 147 are to be scheduled at least 1 week beforehand with approval by Level 4 personnel. Addendum 040. See File TC-147B for further details. Well, I would, but it's not here. After data expunged suggestion, several objects manufactured throughout the 1960 era were brought in. Objects made past March of the year 1965 have resulted in a hostile behavior. Exact dating is difficult due to troubles of obtaining materials precisely made on testable dates and times. Reasons as to why it acts in such a way depending on a specific object's date are unknown and being tested by data expunged. 040A. As has been verified repeatedly, the presence of persons born after 1965 does not in and of itself trigger a hostile event. For reasons unknown, 147 objects mainly to manufactured items. Dr. Somebody recently conducted an experiment in which he clothed himself with vintage pre-1965 articles of clothing, with the caveat that he had 3 big flare pens invented in the 1970s in his shirt pocket. What he saw while seated in front of 147, he would later describe as a bizarre episode of I Love Lucy featuring a surprising amount of gunplay. Addendum 180. Recent tests that involved exposing convicted rapists and psychopaths to the object while it was hostile has indicated that the object is able to tailor the images to the viewer. A rapist was strapped into a metal chair manufactured in 1986, and during that time not a single rape was shown on the screen, while scenes of genital mutilation, primary male, occurred more often. Similarly, a psychopath who would torture someone to death saw fewer scenes of torture and more scenes of botched executions. Dang. That TV is rude. The telekill alloy. Maybe that'll work on the Rude TV. It's Euclid and it has a revision. Been at this for almost an hour. I'll probably stop when I hit 150. That's nowhere near the 200 I was aiming for, but it is currently 11 o'clock at night, and I've done 10, almost 10. 10 is a good amount. I usually do 4 to 6. Anyway, revision 3. 148 is to be stored in 120 cast ingots, each of which weighs approximately 10 kilograms at the time of writing. Ingots of 148 may not be housed at the same site. Sorry. Like I said, 11 o'clock at night. The same site as any SCP due to the potential for unforeseen interactions. Otherwise, said ingots should be distributed equally among acceptable Foundation facilities. The mass of each contained ingot of 148 must be measured and reported monthly. Under no circumstances should any SCP with mind-affecting or extrasensory properties come into contact with 148. In the event of such contact, the immediate area must be evacuated and the affected sample of 148 detonated remotely. Personnel are not to be assigned to 148 for a period of time longer than 3 weeks. Any personnel assigned to 148 are to be given regular psychological evaluations. Now, what the heck is it? 148 is a metallic substance composed of a variety of known and unknown elements. The total mass of 148 on hand is approximately 1.2 tons. 148 has a gray-green color with a bluish tinge and oxidizes readily in the presence of water. 148 has a melting transition point of approximately 4,500 degrees Celsius and a boiling transition point of approximately 9,000 degrees Celsius. In Fahrenheit, it would be over 9,000. 148 has a density of 6.76 grams by centimeters cubed and qualifies as HRC 39 in a Rockwell hardness test. It exhibits material properties such as strength, ductility, and workability similar to platinum. I've never heard of anybody doing anything useful with platinum. You only ever hear of platinum records, and that's about it. Or platinum trophies, but those aren't real. 148 is composed primarily of platinum and iridium. I thought that was just a made-up Borderlands thing. Alright then. The two composing 62% and 20% of its mass respectively. In addition, several other known metals are present in its composition, including iron, cobalt, and copper, which collectively make up 16.5% of 148's mass. However, given the mass of the material, it is believed that there are other substances not detectable by mass spectrometry or other means. Images of 148 taken with a scanning tunneling microscope show gaps in its lattice that, under normal circumstances, would be filled with other materials. 148 blocks or otherwise hinders extrasensory mind-affecting properties of living organisms in proximity to it. This effect, while difficult to quantify, appears inversely proportional to the square of the distance from the subject to SCP's 148 surface and directly proportional to the quantity of 148 in consideration. The range for which this effect is detectable is roughly 0.8 meters per kilogram of 148. 1.1 tons of 148 were retrieved from the Metallurgical Department of Prometheus Lab's base facility. Why does that sound familiar? During the Foundation sweep of the building, documents concerned with the project had unveiled that the substance was to be subject to additional development, sold to blank, trademarked, and sold as telekill alloy. I guess, telekill, like to kill telepaths? However, due to redacted and its political fallout, along with the destruction of the Prometheus Lab base facility, blank has required an estimated 1.3 tons of 148 and sold it to unknown buyers. Foundation agents and forensic accountants are in the process of tracking the remaining supplies down. So, all of that's crossed out, and it says, however, it does not appear to affect items whose notable properties are purely mimetic. Addendum. Beginning in blank, staff reported irrational behavior and poor communication skills amongst janitorial staff tasked with regular maintenance of its containment. At the time, containment consisted of a single storeroom swept and checked on a daily basis. After 3 weeks of increasingly abnormal behavior, 2 custodians were taken in for questioning and examination. Testing revealed that the aforementioned personnel were incapable of interpreting body language and did not appear to notice the intonation or phrasing of sentences. In addition, the affected subjects were incapable of determining the emotional state or intent of others and demonstrated severely limited vocabulary. Okay, so it doesn't just hurt telepaths, it just brain breaks everything. Further testing has revealed that the language and communication skills of persons with regular contact or extended exposure to 148 will over time deteriorate and disappear. It has been shown that after 8 weeks, affected subjects will be rendered completely mute and incapable of understanding or giving nonverbal requests, commands, or other statements, despite showing otherwise normal mental capacity. A measurement taken on blank months after the acquisition indicated that despite no increase in volume, the mass had increased by 0.1 tons, a density increase of 9%. The source of this additional mass is unknown. Maybe it's those guys' brains! Incident Report 148-1. To test the limits of its effects and its capacity to change in mass, 0.9 kilograms of it was placed on a scale and moved to SCP Somebody's chamber. Predictably, SCP-Blanks Redacted was nullified by the presence. However, the sample began to grow in mass of upwards of 5 grams per second. After 1 minute, this rate began to decrease, and 148 ceased to increase in mass 40 seconds later, at which point it weighed 1.4 kilograms. It remained at this mass for 80 seconds before plummeting to the 0.8 kilograms in the space of 2 seconds. During this time, personnel within 60 meters, 12 times the effective range of SCP-Blank, began to experience SCP-Blank's effects, albeit at a vastly increased rate, resulting in data expunge lockdown until the affected subjects could be removed. As of this incident, contact between 148 and any mind-affecting items is strictly forbidden. Addendum 1484. Measurement taken since Incident 148-1 indicate that the combined mass of 148 is increasing at a rate of redacted. It's speculated that should a large quantity of 148 undergo an event similar to the sample used in 148-blank, data expunged. Containment procedures are under review. So, don't put it near any mind-altering people or the world is doomed. Gotcha. Next up is the blood files. And then the prosthetic parasite. Oh, it's a Keter-class mosquito. I guess it's time to put on my serious Keter voice. SCP-149, in any of its instances, is to be kept inside a sealed plexiglass box for observation. Oxygen and a nutrient mist are to be released into the containment cell every 2 hours. If any instance of 149 escapes its cell, Protocol 42 Charlie is to be brought into effect on any and all contaminated personnel, by order of 0512 after Incident 149-1. And there it is, infecting someone. Description: 149 is a breed of mosquito which carries a strain of retrovirus, herein referred to as 149A, that mutates, regenerating human cells into fertilized mosquito eggs. 149A is injected directly into the bloodstream when 149 feeds. The 149A quickly works on the nucleus of the cells, warping the DNA. The first set of cells bred from these changed instructions closely resemble cysts and are concentrated in the lining of the esophagus and the sinuses. Upon dissection, however, these cysts are revealed to be filled with 149's larva, the cysts acting as a protective casing against external forces. 149 appears to go through its maturation cycle in a matter of hours. By the time the subject is able to feel any effects, the first generation of 149 has already grown inside the subject's body. 149 primarily achieves exodus through the mouth and nostrils, occasionally being diverted through the sphenoid sinuses to escape through the eye sockets. Infection by 149 is fatal, and chance of infection has been estimated to be 50% from one bite. Incident 1491. An incident of 149 escaped and infected multiple Class D subjects, the majority of whom did not report 149's contact with them. Within 5 hours, 149 had matured in these hosts and burst out of them, infecting Blank staff. It was only thanks to the quick thinking of Dr. Somebody, who sealed sublevels 12 through 15, that the entire site was not infected. As a response to this, 05 Command has created Protocol 42 Charlie to be used if 149 escapes confinement. And last but not least for this episode anyway, the prosthetic parasite. And that was also probably the shortest Keter class entry I've ever seen. So, alright, this is also a short one. 150 is to be housed in a secure containment cell at Bio-Research Area 12. All personnel entering the cell are to wear Level 4 biohazard equipment to prevent infection. No further containment procedures are necessary. 150 resembles... oh boy... Simathoa exigua tongue louse. Ew. But is adapted to Homo sapiens. Upon contact, the subject embeds itself deeply into the flesh of its host. Within 48 hours, the limb nearest to the infection site will have been converted into a chitinous exoskeleton-like appendage. Wait, is that a person? Did that used to be a person in that picture? The exoskeleton limb is composed entirely of matter consistent with 150. The host is capable of controlling this limb as a normal one due to an advanced neuromuscular interface between the parasite and the host. The parasite draws nutrients from assimilated blood vessels, primarily the brachial and radial arteries in the arms and the femoral artery in the legs. Stage 2 of infection begins approximately 7 days after the infection, don't you know? Hosts report sensing an unfamiliar voice, urging them to act in a way that will result in the loss of the parasitic limb. Upon detachment from the host, the appendage acts much like a shed exoskeleton. Multiple parasites emerge from this cocoon and seek out the nearest host, thus continuing the cycle. In blank % of cases, the hatched parasites return to host the original host. This will continue until all of the original host limbs have been infected. Once all of the host appendages have been infected and detached, multiple instances of 150 will burrow into the host torso. These specimens will attach themselves to the pulmonary artery, the aorta, and the carotid arteries. The host chest will swell to blank % of its original size. At this point, between blank and blank specimens of 150 will emerge from the host chest cavity. Stage 3 infection has a 100% fatality rate. Yeah, that sounds 100% fatal. So, this has been episode 41 of Let's Read the SCP Foundation Wiki, which will probably never get a shorter name. If you liked it, give it a like and maybe a subscribe, that'd be groovy. If you didn't, then you don't have to do either one of those things. So, this has been Anashi Sasuke, thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next episode. Later!